was one of those that was on the sidewalk thinking, I'm going to go and sort it out.
Yeah.
Well,
we need you to, Olivier. We definitely need you to sort it out.
I've been here 2 months.
No.
Give me.
I want it done yesterday. No.
Hey everyone, my name is Olivier and I'm a chair of the NPA. Welcome to Pharmacy Planet podcast.
Well, thanks for joining us for the Pharmacy Planet podcast. I've got Olivier Picard, chairman of the NPA here. Olivier, great to have you. Now, do you want to just give us a bit of background about yourself? How did you end up in this gig then?
Yeah, that's a very good question. As most people will know, I am French and I qualified as a pharmacist in France. So in France, I went to my local university in the city of Nancy, where I come from, Alsace-Lorraine, and then 6 years degree. During my pre-reg year, I met this English girl. And I decided to follow my heart.
So you never came here for the weather then?
Or the food.
Yeah.
Actually,
I was going to bring that in as well.
Actually, it has improved a lot since I've been here 25 years. But yes, at the time, I literally followed my heart. But for anyone listening,
big mistake. Stay in
France.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that to me, but I would tell you that France is full of French people, and I don't know if you've been to France yourself.
I've been to France
they
many
are
a time.
Not all. Yeah. Anyway, the story ends well because today this woman is my wife. We've got two beautiful children, and she supports me in business as well as outside business.
Okay, was there like a discussion? Shall we stay in France or shall we stay in England? There must have been that discussion, right?
There was never a discussion. So my wife is a
you
lawyer.
You clearly are married, so there's never a discussion.
Yes, it's a dictatorship, isn't it? No. My wife's a lawyer, and she couldn't have worked in France as a lawyer. Whereas for me, working as a pharmacist, I had my degree allowed me to work here in the UK. And then, let's face it, I was never designed to stay in France. I had itchy feet. I needed to see the world. I went for a few months in New York, did my pre-reg in hospital in New York. Then I came back to France and I said, where else can I go? And England it was.
Now, I know you're chair of the NPA. You've only been in the job a couple of months?
Yeah, since April.
So a couple of months. So we've been NPA members for, I think, ever since we started, right? So, I don't know, 22 years ago or what have you. I spoke to one of my other directors, and I said, you know what? I've got the NPA chair coming on, and he said, NPA? I said, yeah, shall I ask him something? He looked at me, he goes, what do the NPA do? And I'm like, you know what? That's question number one. I thought you got me there because even I was saying, what do the NPA do?
The NPA is there for you in a time of need, whatever the need. The primary objective of the NPA is to advocate for members. But remember, we have an insurance product. You can't fly without an insurance. So in terms of what we do is we provide you with a product that allows you to deliver all the services, whether these are NHS or private services, and to have a safety net. The insurance product evolves with time. It does mean that as new services come on board, it's included, and it is there for you. But what you get as well as that is the relevance that the NPA is shaping policies by talking to Treasury, by talking to people at NHS England and the Department of Health, talking to ministers in order to make sure that when ministers think, what are we going to do with this service? They think pharmacy, And we need to stay relevant. You probably heard the story of Kodak and Blockbusters, brand that you thought would never go anywhere, but they didn't stay relevant. The NPA is here to help you stay relevant, whether it's AI, whether it's digitalizing your pharmacy. The NPA is taking you on that journey. We're delivering masterclass. We're helping you to set up services so you stay relevant. So we're not the next Blockbusters.
I'm going to be honest, Olivier. Yeah, as a contractor, we used to. What I found is, if I'm honest, when we first joined the NPA absolutely brilliant. For individual contractors. Now, as we grew, and you know the business more and more, we relied less and less on backup and help from the NPA. It's got to the point where, to be honest, we don't really use any part of the NPA, but the insurance I'm, you know what, you've got a fan in the insurance. It's a product like I've got to say I can't. The amount of times we've had to call on NPA insurance, and the amount of times I've sitting there thinking they're not going to cover me. We're stuck. We're stuck. They're not going to cover me. They're not going to cover me. And every time I've picked up the phone and called NPA insurance, every time they've responded straight away. We got you. Every time.
Correct.
Now, like I've had a lot of insurance issues, nothing to do with MPA, nothing to do with pharmacy, but over the years, right? Obviously, in business, you deal with loads of different insurances, and the biggest problem I have is insurance policies are insurance policies. But now, knowing a bit more about insurance and having gone through loads of stresses and strains with insurance, I always do look for who's the underwriter, and I think I'm not 100%, but I'm NPA underwrite their own insurance. Am I correct there? Yeah,
That is correct.
Now, I think this is where I don't know if anyone's just looking at buying pharmacies or whether you're in pharmacy or whatever. Normally, when I do something in my own personal life, what I do is I look for the cheapest insurance. Straightforward. Yeah. I'd compare the market, what have you, you go for the cheapest one. Now, with the NPA, sorry, not even with the NPA, when it comes to an insurer, when you go to make a claim on that insurance, if it's not specifically stated and if it's not open and shut, which most of the time it is, but if it's not, it goes to the underwriter. And then there's this gap where you don't know whether you're covered. And I'm telling you, this gap, if anyone's ever had to go through this gap when you're not sure whether you're covered, you will lose your hair. You can understand that one, right, Olivier?
Yeah,
But you will lose your hair for that gap.
my hair's past
Yeah,
that.
so
Past that.
my point is that gap. And every time I've phoned up the NPA insurance, I've been convinced they're not going to cover me. This is not covered. Every time we're covered, I actually got to the point where I'm thinking, how far can I push it for them to say, actually, boo, we're not covering you now? I'm actually sitting there wondering, one day I'm going to do something stupid like just like fly a plane and just turn around and say, you know what, I'm covered. NPA insurance. I've got to say the insurance has been brilliant. Honestly, I can't recommend it enough.
The insurance is brilliant, and the advantage of underwriting your own insurance is you're in complete control. We have a team of lawyers that advise the NPA, advise you. There is something happen, you pick up the phone, you speak to the right person. And I think that is the most important thing when you have an insurance. It's all fine to try and get the cheapest insurance, but if you're not covered, then you can't operate. And I often say to people, if your insurance is not going to protect you from a possible claim, whether it's COVID, whether it's weight loss, whether whatever, we need to make sure that you're covered. But we have pharmacies advising the NP insurance. We have people who underwrite the insurance. We look at the market, and ultimately, the product that is available now remains relevant to the contract and to the work that we have to do.
So I think a lot of people realize the insurance is a good product. I think there was Newmark jumped in. They offered Newmark insurance. There's a new set of Contractor, IPCN or something. I don't know about the insurance product, and I know they've offered insurance. There's other insurances out there, and I am not gonna, like, as a podcast, we never recommend anything. All I can tell you is my own personal experiences. If something else is better, by all means, go for it. All I can say is every time the Newmark and anyone else has approached, it's like, you know what? I don't think this is one thing I'm not really going to move away from. Not easily. There's got to be something fundamental for me to have to move away. The other services the NPA offers, I'll be honest, Olivier, I don't think we use a little bit the HR law, but to be fair, we do have other options of using HR law. Because we're NPA members, we just use it because we might as well. Yeah.
Correct.
But in terms of the other services, we don't use anything else. But if I was an independent contractor, I'm new. There's a lot of new independent contractors. What do you guys actually do? It's not going to be relevant to me, I'm pretty sure. But what do you guys actually do anyway?
I actually don't think that you're right. You say it's not for you. I disagree. I completely disagree. We have advice and support. And we have customers who are not necessarily in full membership, who are customers of the NPA because of advice and support. And these are large group, hundreds of pharmacies.
Really?
Yes. Why is that? Not because of necessarily just the insurance. They probably buy the insurance, but they also buy a pick and choose, pick and mix, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
I want services. I want access to masterclass. I want representation. Whatever it is, we can tailor it. So whether you're small or whether you're large, there is something for you. Obviously, what you choose to use is your own doing. Now, in a big organization, you might have support within your own organization. But, this year, just since the beginning of the year, 100 new members have joined the NPA. That's 50 new members and 50 additional branches in people already in membership. So there are 50 people who were never members of the NPA who have become members of the NPA. These people, they will access the support. They will want to develop the business. They will want to introduce new services. Now, as a pharmacist yourself, you might already have gone down that journey. But for those who haven't, the NPA is doing that for you.
As I was, again, speaking to one of the other directors, like I said, the first thing he said was, what did the NPA do? And I said, I'll ask that question because I'm not 100% sure myself anymore, yeah? Second, he said, oh, you got coming on. I said, Olivier Picard. He said, what does he do then? I said, he's a chairman. He's like, what do they do? I thought, that's going to be my second question. What does a chairman actually do?
Yeah, that's excellent. So at the NPA, there is an executive team. There is a CEO, and there is senior management team, someone in charge of finance, sometimes someone in charge of membership, someone in charge of policies and practice, that sort of thing. Training, learning and development, all this sort of thing. Okay. And there is a board. And the board is an elected board by members of pharmacists. In order to be on the board, you have to be a member of the NPA. Okay. And what the chair of the board does is it work with the board in shaping the direction in which the NPA is going, whether it's campaigning, whether it's developing learning and development, whether it's developing insurance, whatever it is, the board is steering that direction and the executive team make it happen.
Okay. So if, for example, as a contractor and a member, if I have an issue with the way direction and policy making or anything to do with the NPA, get in touch and you're the man?
Correct. All so right. Myself, but
or
you can
of the team.
Yeah, one of the team. You can contact your local board member. It's all published. Every area has a board member. I am elected board member for sort of the east of England, so anywhere from Oxford all the way to Norfolk. That is sort of my area, including part of Leicester and the Midlands. It's a big area, and a lot of people perhaps don't know how to get hold of me. But they will have an NPA relationship manager. They can always get in contact with me. And in fact, I have had many members come to me, or via the NPA to say, I want to speak to Olivier. My phone is always on. My wife would tell you my phone is always on.
Okay. When it comes to pharmacy contractors, the issues pharmacy is facing at the moment, they're massive.
Massive.
Yeah, absolutely massive. Yeah. I don't even know where to start to unpick it because I really want to hear what you're thinking and what your kind of direction is and what your thoughts are. Yeah, I'm dying to know what your thoughts are because I'm going to be honest, as a contractor, I'm very disappointed in the situation pharmacies in at the moment, right? NHS pharmacies, we're pretty much on our knees. NHS pharmacies is on its knees. There's been a new contract that's just come out for NHS pharmacies. I've been highly critical of it right from the start. Yeah. What do you think of the new contract?
We'll take a step back before we talk about the new contract. As you know, the NHS commissioned an independent economic analysis of the sector.
Yep.
And that independent economic analysis was published recently and showed what we all knew, right? A huge gap in funding. Okay. It was published 12 months after the data started, and we were already £2.6 billion short of where we needed to be. Okay. As a result of that, whatever deal was going to be offered was always going to be disappointed. But we also have to realize that we live in difficult economic times on the back of COVID. The country is in severe debts, and money is not necessarily available. There's no money tree that you can shake and money falls into the pot. So there was some hard decision that had to be made, I suppose, by the Treasury. And that was to come up with a number. And what happens generally is that the Department of Health would then write to Community Pharmacy England, CPE, and would say, we propose to pay you that much. Okay. And that much was clearly not great, albeit it was an improvement on what it was. So you're right, it was disappointing because it still left a huge gap between where we need to be and where we were at the time. But personally, I think it was probably a step in the right direction. What it is we will see what it looks like going forward, because it's all fine to say we've taken a step in the right direction. But the second step is going to be equally important, because if they don't take big steps each time to try and close that gap, the gap is only going to grow, because the independent economic analysis says that by 2030 we need to have £8 billion of funding. We're on 3 billion. So unless we take huge leap forward, we're never going to get there.
Okay. It's interesting you said that. Look, we need to find a bit of background. You can't go straight into new contract. Okay. Now, in terms of for pharmacies in the UK, for any of the viewers, the funding for state funding is agreed with a representative body called Community Pharmacy England, who every single pharmacy contractor kicks up monies to be able to negotiate on your behalf. That's the nuts and bolts of it, right?
It is.
Now, over the last 15 years, my personal opinion, I think most contractors will echo this, yeah, is the CPE has failed and is presided over like abject failure over 15 years. We'll get to this year's contract, but coming up to this year's contract, it's been abject failure. And my personal bugbear is I never hear anyone in leadership positions who ever echoes what I'm thinking, apart from Layla Hambeck, who came on. That was the first time I heard somebody in a leadership position who actually calling out what I think the majority of members think, that CPE is failing. What do you think about my view of CPE, not including this contract, but for the last 10 to 15 years?
Hindsight is beautiful. We had the 5-year contract, like it or not, at the time, that's exactly what we received. And at the time, some people thought it was a good idea. In hindsight, it probably wasn't. So the failing of CPE probably is a reflection of the time that we've had. It's also we have
failing of CPE for about 15 years, yeah?
Yeah, so we've been on a downward spiral. But remember, CPE doesn't necessarily dictate what's on offer. Okay, the Department of Health goes to the Treasury and say, I need for pharmacy this amount of money. Okay, CPE then get presented with a sum of money, and they're not really negotiating on that money. What they're negotiating on is how the money is distributed. Yeah. So the failing, is probably the lack of not necessarily lobbying, but the lack of messages to the Department of Health, to the Treasury, historically, by everybody, to make a meaningful difference, so that the number that's being offered via CPE is meaningful for everyone. But you're correct. Over the years, it has gone down. Having a pop at CPE probably today is not necessarily the most constructive way of looking at it, because the difference will be made by lobbying the MPs, by lobbying the department and the civil servants, to make sure that those people who go and bat on behalf of the profession, and by that I mean go and ask Treasury how much money is needed, do so with the belief that then pharmacy will be able to deliver.
Yeah, I think I completely disagree with your standpoint from so many angles. I don't know where to start. I think the argument, I spent a long time thinking, up until this contract was released, up until this one, I honestly thought, you know what, exactly what you're saying, money is tight, it's harder and harder to negotiate. It's not the fault of negotiators, it's the fault of government. And really, now, I've changed my mind. I think it's a failure in leadership. Failure in leadership across the board, and I think it's a failure in negotiation from CPE. And in terms of negotiators, what you're saying to me, and this is what I want to hear, within the pharmacy industry, there was no set of people that could have negotiated with government and got any better outcome, full stop. Because if that's true, then fair enough, there's no criticism for CPE. I think it's absolute rubbish. I think our negotiators are actually really poor, because quite literally, and this I'm saying this like I can't believe I'm saying this with a straight face. Quite literally, they could not have done a worse job. They could not have done a worse job. We actually got a funding decrease, forget increase, from 2.8 billion to 2.5 billion. It was a decrease. And it's like, how bad does CPE have to be before there's any recourse? Now, although there's nice warm words from you, Olivier, I understand, and I know you used to be on CPE, I'm saying on an organizational level, CPE has failed, and unless there's some recourse, the division within the sector will carry on. It's never going to stop unless our leadership understand that we are not accepting CPE in its current form, because they are, I personally think, not fit for purpose, because they're poor negotiators. They come back with bad results. I'll let you say your piece, and what I'll do is we're going to just briefly touch on the new contract, because this one is the one that's made me, having nothing for the last 15 years, and I've not criticized CPE. This one has got me bouncing off the walls, because this one's really got under my skin.
And it did undermine too, and we'll come back to that. I think what you need to realize is that Community Pharmacy England is made of community pharmacists.
Agreed.
People who work, live and breathe pharmacy, whether they are representative of the large companies like the CCA, the Boots and the supermarket, or independent elected regional representative, NPA nominees, IPA elected members, whoever they are all working pharmacists. And I genuinely, having seen it myself, I genuinely think that they're trying their very best. Are they the best?
I'm going to just...
Okay.
I feel like bouncing off the
Of
walls
course.
already. You've got me really riled. Pharmacy is in such bad, dire straits. All for the last 15 years, I've heard about what they're doing and how hard they're working. You know, it's like, I feel like for all these committee members, I feel like saying, look, what do you want? A participation medal? This isn't sports day. This is got, right now, because you've got me going now. You've got me. No one gets me going like that. Normally I have to tell the other. Yeah, normally I get the other. CPE is so consequential. If the locum's not getting enough money, it's CPE. If my premises doesn't look good, it's not up to date, it's because of CPE. If my staff member can't pay their mortgages on time, it's because of CPE. It is so consequential. It drives me nuts when people turn around and say, but they really tried. They really tried, but the government was just mean. And from my perspective as a contractor, you're going to have to apologize for my language. I don't mean it to be derogatory, but this is how we feel. Yeah. I am not satisfied with their normal pharmacists, and they're trying. They are, but they failed. So can you please get out?
You make a very good point, and you probably speak on behalf of a lot of members who, to a point, like to be on the sidewalk and throw stones at the problem.
I love it. I'm going to get to this as well.
And I often look at myself, and when I joined the NPA, eventually CPE, that sort of thing, I did it because it didn't sit comfortably with me to sit on the outside and then look at it and just keep criticizing it. So I said, I'm going to jump into it, and I'm going to try and make a difference. But like you, I work and operate 4 pharmacies in Berkshire today. I see the real dire strait that we're in. Okay, and I'm trying to see where we can get out of this hole. And to get out of this hole, it is not going to happen in one go. We're going to have to chip at it slowly. The political game is a long game. It takes time, and things will take time to change, to improve, to get better. Today, like you, we are not in a good place. And today, when presented with the deal, which was approved by CPE, when presented with the deal, there was a lot of conversation, hard conversation, as to what needs to happen with this deal, and the consequence when talking to government about this deal being approved or not approved.
Okay. When this settlement came out and they said, this is a summary, here's the highlights. Yeah. You read into it. And my big problem with CPE was not what was negotiated and what was on the table. That is not my problem. My big problem. It is a problem because I don't think it's good enough. I personally wouldn't vote for it, but that's not my bugbear. My real issue was messaging, because it came out, and the 30% figure has been bandied about. Yeah. Now, I'm going to ask you, Olivier, I've checked my April figures. Yeah. I can check my latest figures. I've not had a 30% increase. I know you haven't had a 30%
I
increase.
haven't.
I know everyone in the whole country hasn't had a 30% increase. My problem with CPE was misrepresentation. Yeah, that was my problem with CPE. And it wasn't just a little bit of misrepresentation, it's huge, because not only have they said that it's a 30% increase, which everyone knows how you can play with numbers. I'm not saying the numbers are incorrect. I'm saying they were misrepresented. Yeah. So it's not 30% at all. Yeah. On top of that, there was little bits in there. Now, as soon as I read it, the first thing that struck me was how they changed. Now, this is getting a bit nitty gritty. I don't want to get too much, but it was open and shut, and where I think CPE have not been open. Yeah. And one of them is when they changed the NMS part of the contract, which is a service we deliver. Now, all we used to have to do to complete the service was attempt the second part of the service. A lot of the time was a phone call. Yeah. And if they never went through, you would still get paid for your
Correct.
for your job, right? So that service has been changed, split into two. Yeah. Now, according to CPE, yeah, the payment structure, I'm reading this now, for NMS has been simplified. That was the wording. Yeah. I read that straight away, and I said to the team, we're screwed. This is a loss here. Yeah. So before, what would happen is you would do your NMSs, first part, you would get paid, you would attempt the second one, and you'd still get paid, right? Now, the problem is, and I know, getting through to people is the hard work.
It is.
Now, I've either got to put in more resources, or there's going to be less funding coming my way. So that is a cost. NMS hasn't been simplified. There's money out my pocket. Now, my big problem with the contract was, initially, we couldn't have been in a better position in terms of negotiation. I don't mind if there's give and take. I'm not in the negotiations. I'm not naive enough to be able to talk from the sidelines, like you mentioned, to say I know what was going on. I know you've given up NMS. I know this has cost the industry. Why not just be upfront and say, look, we know that this has cost the industry, and this is roughly how much it's going to cost. I'll let you have a turn. I know I'm going off on one for a second here. I actually pulled up the NMS figures as well.
So
And
I'm not going to dispute everything that you say. And the only thing that I wish had happened, Boo, is if you'd been a fly on the wall when we had the meeting at CPE to see my reactions, because I was exactly like you. So I have pushed back on changes in regulation for DSPs. I've pushed back on NMS changes. I've pushed back on a lot of things. Okay, not necessarily the majority of the committee agreed with me, but I have pushed back, and I feel like you are, because I deliver the service, and as I said to you, to other people, I'm a contractor like you. I go to the pharmacy, I do NMSs, I do vaccinations, I do dispense prescription, I check them, that sort of thing. And like you, I really feel it. So when I saw the changes, I clearly objected to them. And I just wish you'd been that fly on the wall to see me rant at CPE.
okay. Again, just following on a little bit, my problem was with the messaging. Yeah. Now, when this settlement came out, the 30% figure was bandied about hugely. Yeah, it was underlined. Yeah, and let me actually put in the figures, the highlights. These are along the highlights, right? The largest uplift, total uplift of more than 30%, the largest uplift in funding across the whole of the NHS. Yeah, this is our own industry body misrepresenting what this contract actually means on a day-to-day basis for us. Yeah. Now you might think, well, you know what, they've learned their lesson, or we've fed this back up the chain. But this is so fundamental, because now as a contractor, I'm thinking, hold on, where do their loyalties lie? Because this comes to me as though it's government propaganda. I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, hold on, have you ever seen that, like Scooby-Doo or something, when like somebody, I wouldn't be surprised if like Janet Morrison pulls off a mask and it's Rachel Reeves there or something. Like this is, I look at this and I sit there thinking, this is like, is that the government's actually pulled this out. This isn't done for our own negotiate on our behalf. It's just basically not true.
And when I was reviewing the deal, and when we got to voting for the deal, I often hear people saying we wish we knew how people voted for the deal. Like you, I crawled over the figures. Like you, I challenged the messaging. And when it got to voting for the deal, I voted against the deal.
Okay.
I voted against the deal because it didn't deliver for members. It didn't address the cash flow issue. Like you say, the messaging, was confusing at best, and therefore, for me, it wasn't something that we could agree to.
It's not necessarily what we've agreed to. My concern is it's been sold to the membership as something that it's not. It's sold to the contract network as something that it's not. It's fundamentally broken the trust between what me as a contractor believes the CPE is saying. I don't believe they're working on my behalf anymore. Now that's a serious problem because I don't actually trust them. So whatever they say now, I've got to double check it. I've got to check out the figures. And this is my biggest problem, right? I saw, who's the pharmacy minister? Is it Stephen Kinnock? Stephen Kinnock, right. I heard him on LBC, and you know what he was trumpeting? This wasn't straight after this. This was maybe a few weeks ago, trumpeting in all the things the Labour government is doing, and in there was the largest increase ever seen in pharmacy, almost 30%, and he's trumpeting it as a win, as though he's helped sort out the sector. And at that point, I just wanted to throttle someone from CPE because I personally think, agreeing to this messaging, has completely and utterly shocked the contractor network and pharmacies in the foot. Now you're telling me how can we, if we're not united, how do we turn around and negotiate with government, right? How can you do that without a united front? Well, what possible chance have you got of negotiating with government when you've already agreed that we've just had a 30% uplift last year, and this has been in your own messaging, which we all know isn't real? What chance is there?
You've got to work with the government because remember, the messaging delivered by CPE is one thing, but the amount of money being offered to CPE on behalf of contractors, okay, that is not CPE's doing. And that is really what's clear. Now, whether you think that the figures have been massaged, whether they've been misrepresented, there is a lot there. But if we earn all of the money, if we spend all the pharmacy first money and do all the hypertension that we need to do and the prescription that we need to do, and we end up earning the amount of money that is there, that is on offer, compared to the £2.6 billion or 2.592 that we used to have, with what it is, but arguably the number will be 30%. Now, do I agree with it? Initially, it isn't. There is money that's been written off, historical excess margin being written off. So there's a lot involved in there. But if we can spend that money, which is what the role of CPE is, then we will be better off than we were before this deal. But you're correct. This deal doesn't address a lot of problems, a lot of underlying issues. It doesn't address the people that have to sell cars to pay the Sigma bill, that sort of thing. And I think that this is really key for everyone to understand, that there are several parts to the problem here. And I'm not necessarily defending CPE. I'm just trying to state how things work. CPE doesn't negotiate the amount of money that's on offer.
Look, it's CPE's job to be able to put forward a case so the amount of money in offer is more representative to what we deliver. So it is always going to rest with CPE. As far as I'm concerned, I know there's a lot of people on committee members, you might say it's a thankless task. I've got a simple message. If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Yeah. This is bigger than just you. Yeah. So
and equally, for those who are sitting on the side and would like to take some heat, please join the team, as I've done.
Of course.
Because that's what I did.
Yeah.
I was one of those that was on the sidewalk thinking, I'm going to go and sort it out.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
not
we
saying-
need you to, Olivier.
Well,
we definitely need you to sort it out.
I've been here 2 months.
No.
Give me-
I want it done yesterday. No, so,
Maybe we're talking
yeah.
a couple of years and see where we are.
Okay, so now we're just talking about. You just said, well, if we access all the funds, there's a few. Rather than I'm not here to analyze the heck out of the contract, yeah. But there is. I mean, you know that blood pressure payments went down from £15 to £10 for delivering a blood pressure. It's my problem is I don't know the way CPE look at it, but they don't. Or as a committee and as an organization. But me as a business, yeah, my issue was that there's a narrow window of people that we can offer blood pressures to, which is somebody over 40 who's not
Correct.
gone to the doctors, who's not been to the doctor for 6 months, so and not on any hypertension medication in the first place. It's a narrow window, right? If these were being directed to my pharmacy, I'll do them for £10 all day long. Don't worry about it. It's fine. But now you want me to search through 300-400 patients a day to find the one person who's over 40, not on any other medication, hasn't ever been to the doctor. So these people, the reason why they're paying for it is because they're a needle in a haystack. They don't access healthcare regularly.
Correct.
They are costing the NHS a lot of money because they don't access healthcare regularly. We on the front line have been told, right, you find these needles in a haystack, you get them, and you get them engaged in healthcare, yeah? And for all your work, we're going to give you £10. And it's like, oh, for God. And now what's going to happen is, it's very simple. Everyone just, if they're going to if people are going to walk in and say, I want a blood pressure, yeah, you're all right. But if you're going to expect pharmacy teams, and you hear so much about make every contact count. Correct. Even that drives me nuts, that word, because it's like, who is paying for every contact when there's no result of most contacts? Every time it's like it's costing us a fortune to find those fraction of blood pressure patients that are eligible for this. Or obviously there's certain contractors that might have relationships with doctors and they might have a regular stream of blood pressure patients that they're dealing with. But the vast majority, we're struggling. And, you do say there's loads of other services on offer. When you're having to look around in the nooks and crannies for a little bit of money here and a little bit of money there, it's not good enough. Whatever CPE have organised and how they've looked at the contract, it's not good enough. And that blood pressure thing highlights, like, how can you miss something that is so difficult for us? But I am going to say I wasn't there in the negotiations, and negotiations are a two-way thing. So, and it's always about the in play. So you give up one, you get something else. I understand how it works. But the way this has been portrayed to us, it makes me think CPE is not on our side. And as far as I'm concerned, there needs to be some sort of recourse. And this is what I want to speak to you about more than anything else. When it comes to pharmacy leadership organizations, yeah, there's always been a problem. Us contractors or members, it always feels like people in leadership organizations, there's like a merry-go-round or musical chairs with people going from one committee to another job to another job. Doing a bad job has no recourse. It seems to be there is no comeuppance. And CPE is an example. 15 years of failure and 1 year particularly of, I think, more failure, but makes me think, has made the contractor network think that they are, you wonder what their motivations are when they pull out paperwork like this. You wonder, are they even on your side? I just want to know, what's the comeuppance to these organizations?
When CPE has a relationship with government, it is the body that is recognized by government for negotiation. So they couldn't go currently to another organization. And CPE is the only organization that has, I suppose, every part of the contractors in there. So they arguably can talk on behalf of the contractors. But do everybody at CPE on the committee agree on everything? No, because we've got different business models. We've got different ways of delivering. Some people would think that they can survive on dispensing more prescription. Other people want to deliver more services. And I think it's a fine balance in order to take the whole membership with us. And you've seen it that some large companies are perhaps reducing their size because it's difficult for them to meet ends, to the benefit of some more nimble independent who are joining the club by purchasing those pharmacies or taking them on. So, is it a failure on part of CPE? I think, there's been a lot of successive chief executive and committee members that have come in and shaped the contract that we are in at the moment. But this is hugely influenced by the government. And the government has, I wasn't at the negotiating table, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. Like you, I was a contractor on the outside. I was looking at it. And I was seeing the open letters to say my contract is reducing from 2.8 to 2.592 billion. At that stage, I'm angry. I'm having patients queuing outside my pharmacies. I'm throwing my arms in the airs, and I'm just going on the social media and I'm saying that's not good enough. But that was not good enough because the government decided we're going to cut it.
Okay, like I said, it's a very simple message from me as a contractor personally. CPE has failed. It's failed consistently over the last 15 years. This last year now made me think that you're not even on my side, because as far as I'm concerned, that messaging is not realistic. I think you've given the government leverage with this whole 30% figure. I think that was just completely ridiculous. I can't understand the motivations behind that. Because of that, I think CPE has failed. Now, it comes to organizations a little bit here, right? So what we find is, I do find IPA as an organization has echoed a lot of the sentiment. I am concerned that NPA as a leadership organization on the lobbying part, you're not echoing my sentiment that CPE is not fit for purpose. That's my opinion. It's not echoing the sentiment, even, well, you might not agree with it. And I just don't see how anyone can defend CPE's record and CPE's the current organizational, not just structure, but the organizational decision making. Because each person in committee, you mentioned that each one's a committee member. I get it. I know CPE committee members. You got some sharp cookies. I have no doubt. People who know their stuff. I'm not saying I'm here to give them special arguments that they don't know. CPE have all the arguments. But somehow something is failing on an organizational level when it comes to decision making. I would want leadership organizations to echo that. And if leadership organizations don't echo that, what's going to happen is you're going to get more and more little, there's a new contractor network,
IPCN?
IPCN. I don't know anyone from IPCN. I don't know any of their messaging, but I do know why they're probably there. It's probably because they think they've been failed by the current leadership. And I think that's probably why they're there. I don't know. I'm putting words in their mouth. I can't see what else it is. But I do echo the sentiment that the leadership generally, other than, and I keep having to say other than Layla, is because I was actually surprised, because most times, most people in them positions, because everyone knows each other, they never stick their neck out. No one ever turns around and calls anyone out. And CPE, everyone knows they've done a bad job. And you just see all leadership organizations just sitting on their hands, kind of justifying, explaining. And it's like, no, we're not having it anymore. It's not good enough. And I want someone in leadership positions, in this case it's you, Olivier, to echo my sentiment that the contractors will not have this anymore. And if you don't echo my sentiment, and IPA don't echo my sentiment, and IPCN don't echo my sentiment, there'll be a fourth organization and a fifth one and a sixth one. It's going to be whack-a-mole in organizations, because they're going to be popping up all over the place.
Yeah, I think you touch on something very important, okay? The NPA campaigned really hard, as you know. And the reason we campaigned really hard, and we had a ballot and we had those days of action, is because we needed to highlight to government, because the people that we need to, having a pop at CPE, which is what I said to you earlier, it's not going to necessarily change anything. What's going to change something is by having a pop at your MP, having a pop at your local elected representative, the people who make the decision, the people who can influence from the outside. CPE will also have a role in lobbying, in representing the contractors, in the messaging, all that I totally get. But having a pop at CPE is not necessarily going to make the thing any better. What the NPA will do, and what I will do with the NPA, is I will continue lobby hard. I will continue with our campaign. I will continue making sure that we can work with government, because ultimately, you want me to talk to the government on behalf of NPA members. You want IPA to talk to the government on behalf of their members. But we need to have this sort of joined up message. If we all have common ground, if we all agree that dispensing at the loss is unacceptable, if we all agree that our funding is not good enough, if we all agree that we can't pay our wholesalers' bill, okay, then we have a simple message for government. If we have inward fighting, if we have organization propping up, as you say, because they've got anger issue, having a pop at CPE, that is not going to make any difference. The difference will be made by lobbying government, talking to Treasury, and supporting CPE in getting a better deal. But I appreciate that CPE delivery of that deal is not where we need to be. But I'm not entirely sure that it's CPE's fault, because CPE, remember, and I think this is where the confusion is, CPE doesn't negotiate the amount of money that's available. We as NPA, Layla and IPA, and to a point the CCA, when they talk to government, they can have an influence on how much money is made available. What we need is a joined up message, a message that will say, whether I'm talking to Malcolm Harrison from the CCA, where I'm talking to Henry, the CEO of the NPA, or where I'm talking to Layla, the CEO of IPA, I'm hearing the same thing. Currently, they're not.
There's a new 10-year plan. The government's just, it's more highlights or intentions, and they've got neighbourhoods in there. What is your initial thoughts about it?
So we've seen those plans, haven't we? With successive governments. We've got a 5-year plan. We've got a 10-year plan. We've got a plan for the NHS by 2050, by 2030. It's always been there. In them, there's never been a mention of pharmacy. Mm-hmm. If you'd gone in those documents in the past and did a search for the word pharmacy, it may have appeared once, probably didn't appear at all. This time around, pharmacy is mentioned a number of times. And actually, when you think about the ambition of this government, which is to bring care closer to where people live, okay, where else but in a community pharmacy would you want to do it? There's a huge opportunity. When they talk about analog to digital, when they talk from hospital to community, okay, pharmacy will have a role to play. Now, you will say to me, well, how do we know something is coming? Well, we don't, because that is really difficult. But, as the NPA, we went and met with the Treasury and talked to them about what this looks like on behalf of contractors. The challenge will be, how quickly can they roll it out? How quickly will they involve community pharmacy? And will we have the right level of support and funding? These are all the questions that we don't know. But initially, it's a promising document compared to what has been published in the past.
Okay, I've got an issue again.
Okay.
It doesn't stop, does it, Olivier?
Well, it doesn't end that. This is great that you have issues, because we can try and answer them.
Okay, I've got issues again. Yeah, that I'm going to go off on a bit of a monologue again, because I just can't. It drives me nuts, some of the things. Like, I've got a list here. So I've been through quite a few reorganisations of the NHS. There was originally health authorities. They were huge, yeah. And then some bright spark thought, we need a reorganisation. They're too big. Well, I tell you what, we need care closer to home, a bit more tighter units. They made them PCTs. I remember going through that process, yeah. And then they said, these PCTs, they're creating little fiefdoms, they're too small. What they do is everyone's got this duplication of work. Tell you what, we need something bigger. Tell you what, let's make CCGs. Then they had CCGs. Since CCGs are, this ain't really working, I tell you what, let's make ICBs. Now, whether you get bigger, smaller, I've lived through them all. And there's one constant. That is, pharmacy has been, as a community pharmacy, has been screwed through every single reorganization in history. Yeah. So now every word I hear from every single commentator in pharmacy, and this is what really drives me nuts, is the word opportunity, 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 opportunity for clinical services, opportunity for, and every time any of these reorganizations happened, every single time I would see the same way we would approach these reorganizations. We would put forward the case of what pharmacy can do. We would be, for want of better description, it's like puppies with their tails wagging. What we can do this, we can do this, and then we'd always turn around and just like put at the bottom. But you better pay us. But you better pay us. But you better pay us. We can do this. We can do this. We can. But you better pay us. And every time we've been screwed. And it seems like we're approaching this in exactly the same way that has left us screwed for the last 15 years. My concern is this is not an opportunity. I don't think we should approach this as an opportunity. It may be, but we shouldn't approach it as an opportunity. I think we need to approach it as a threat, because I can see it again. I can see it as pharmacies going to get screwed in the deal again. I've got to go with CP's track record as well, by the way. But yeah, go on. What do you think?
So I think you are thinking here about the volume of work that we do for the amount of money that we're being paid. Okay, so basically, you cannot roll out new services. You can't roll out services that are currently being offered in hospital into the community without funding and without support. And what's happened in the past is it's always been done within the envelope that we were being offered. So you were being paid this amount that included services, prescription, everything. Today, the mindset is shifted. We're now in a position where we're saying enough is enough. Yes, we can participate. Yes, we've got the bandwidth. Yes, we've got the knowledge. Yes, we've got the expertise. Yes, we can do this for you, but not for what you're paying us.
I think it's the wrong negotiating tactic. I think the first thing you should say is not yes, 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 yes. It should be no, 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 no. I think the first thing you should turn around and say is we don't want, this is my own opinion, and obviously I'm not in your position. What I would turn around and say is, I don't want any part of this. This is going to, and let me take a step back, actually. Let me take a little bit of a step back, yeah? Every reorganization has been a failure. So this reorganization will be, if not a failure, it's going to be, pharmacy is going to be sidelined, like it always is, and the reorganization will not deliver what they think it's going to deliver. This is my personal opinion. It's going to be a failure. And the main reason why it's going to be a failure is because most the biggest issue is secondary care. It's sucking up a lot of money. It's sucking up a lot of money. They're sclerotic organizations. They're highly bureaucratic. No one sticks their neck out. They don't reward efficiency. The people within them and the culture within it is not conducive to good outcomes. Now, what happens is you do a reorganization. You can do as many reorganizations as you want. The culture is the same and the people are the same. It will fail. There's no doubt. Yeah. All you're doing is just moving things around. Now, as usual, GPs and everyone, they've seen these through for decades. They've seen loads of these. They know, simple as this, we're not doing anything till you pay us. If you pay us, we'll think about it. That's the only approach. We take an approach of, look what we can do, look what we can do. Can we be a part of this? And I think the government looks down on it. And I think we're so eager. I actually think the government, whilst negotiating Department of Health, I think they might be just, they're looking at GPs and turning around saying, well, this is what's on offer. And if you guys don't do it, we'll go to those skanks, community pharmacy, because they take anything. And I think that's our problem at the moment. So I think we're approaching this all wrong.
Yeah. So you make very good points in terms of, wanting to do things. But if we said we don't want to do this, we don't want to do that, they'll find someone else to do it. Okay. But if we say we can do this and we can do it with the right level of support and the right level of funding, then actually we might be in a conversation. And remember what I said earlier, we've never been in any of the reorganization document before. Never.
Okay.
We've never appeared in there. Community pharmacy was never spoken about. Today, it is mentioned several times in the document, which means that the thinking is we can go to government. Now, we might have the approach that you mentioned to say, well, it's all fine. We're not going to do this. But we'll, I think we need to have an approach to say, oh, yeah, that's something we can do. And that's something we can do but not for what we're being paid.
I,
And unless you find something, then we're not doing it.
Yeah, I disagree with the approach completely, Olivier. That has been the same approach we've been taking in the last 15 years. I mean, you guys have got to go away and formulate policy, so this is
Yeah.
all quite new.
Yeah.
So all I ask is, as a member, you take my concerns on board when you're looking at formulating these policies. But my concern is when it comes to any kind of reorganizations, we turn around and we're thinking in 5 years, 10 years, moving from secondary care to primary care. We should start thinking in political cycles. Now, in terms of Department of Health, the ministers there, what they're really concerned about is their job and whether they can go in 4 years' time to the electorate and get re-elected, and what they can sell. So what they need is a quick win. So when you turn around and say, well, they could go to someone else, they may deliver it, I think we're panicking for the wrong reason. They need a win within 4 years. They don't need it in 10, 15. They know as much as we know this reorganization is not going to make any difference. They just need to get enough quick wins to be able to sell to the public. With that in mind, we need to go to government, I personally think, is to turn around and say, we don't want any part of this, but we will give you a quick win, but it's going to cost. Choice is yours. If you don't want it, fine. Don't take your win.
We have the same approach, with the except that you have your pessimistic hat on,
yes.
and I have my optimistic hat on.
The optimistic hat don't work. It don't work, Olivier.
We haven't tried it. We haven't tried it.
15 years we've been trying.
No, we've been pessimistic for 15 years.
No.
We're now being optimistic. Why would we want to participate in the campaign?
Yeah.
It's because we need to move in that clinical space. And if we don't, we'll be left hanging dry, dispensing prescription, pushing pills in bags. We need to move in that clinical space, and the only way to do it is to approach the government and say, there are things in there we like, there are things in there we can do, and there are things in there we're going to do very well for you. What we're not going to do is we're not going to do it if you don't pay us. And I could tell you that, I've been approached, I'm an independent prescriber, I've been approached to take part in the clinical pathway for or the trial for independent prescribing, and they told me what they want to pay me. And I said, no, because I can't make a living. So if you're going to pay me what I'm paying my locum, how can I work? I can't work like this. I need to keep the lights on. I need to pay the rent. I need all sorts of things. But we are going to have to be in that clinical space. Otherwise, we are going to be the Blockbuster. We're going to be the Kodak. We're going to disappear because we're going to be replaced by automation. Let's move into a clinical space.
Okay. So now you're in a leadership position, Olivier. So I've got to say it's a lot going on in pharmacy at the moment, and I do not envy you, and I do not envy that position, because right now, with so many competing voices, so many things, I see being in pharmacy leadership, or being on any, even CP or anything, is a bit of a no-win situation now. Yeah, and I think it's extremely, extremely difficult of how to go about it. I've got to say, I don't envy you in your current situation, because being chair of the NPA, trying to navigate all this, and especially with so much issue within the contractor network, how do you think you're going to navigate so many challenges over the next year or two? And are you going to be one of those leaders that actually stands by his word, and then if he fails, actually owns up to it? Falls on his sword? Because you never see that in any leadership position. In as far as pharmacy is concerned, it's always been a win-win. It's a one-way street. CPE is definitely a one-way street. Them guys, it doesn't matter what you do, you will always get paid, you will always be at the top, and you will just pretend as though you've done a good job, even though you clearly haven't, and everyone knows it, by the way. But yeah, go on.
Being the chair of the NPA is an honor of a career. For me, 8 years ago, when I joined the board of the NPA, I never thought I'm going to be the chair. It was never even in the back of my mind. But things have changed, and what has happened over the last 7-8 years that I've been on the NPA is I've remained true to myself. I have been the person that I've always been, and that it's someone that is optimistic, someone that is enthusiastic, energetic, in my business, in my home life, at the NPA. That's who I am. It is tough because the sector is, I suppose, divided, you could say. It is tough because we tend to have a bit of inward fighting, a bit of representation, a bit of land grabbing, who represents who. That's always complicated. For me, I see this again as an opportunity. People have tried, not necessarily successfully, but recently I have reached out to the board of the IPA. I have reached out to IPCN. I have reached out to the CCA, and I said, I want to work with you, and I'm starting to get replies.
Okay, and have they said yes?
They have said yes.
Okay.
So this is what I can do. Now, will I get the sector united within the 2 years of my chairmanship? Well, time will tell. What I'm going to do is I'm going to approach it in exactly the same way as I've done in business all the time. It's like with a smile, with energy, and with a bit of genuine approach, which I hope will come through.
Olivier, just before everyone finishes, there's always a bit of a quick fire round.
Okay.
And these are normally cunning questions to be able to figure out exactly the kind of person you are.
Hasn't that come across already?
No, this one's special.
All right. Okay.
This one's special. This one, because you're also French and also English, I've mixed it up here just to figure out where your allegiances are.
All right.
So I've got cunning questions here to figure out whether you are more French or more English. Yeah. So, and some others.
Can I just say before you go is that if you ask those same question to my wife, I reckon she will disagree with what's coming.
It doesn't matter.
We will see.
Okay. Right. It's just either or. Yeah. You just got to explain why. Fine, full-bodied red wine or cold, refreshing beer?
I'm French. We're gonna have to go with the fine red wine.
Yeah. I just knew you were going to answer that. I knew it, but
why did you ask?
I had to check. I just thought, is he going to sell it as though he's all English now? Is he going to come across? Because I knew the answer was wine. I knew even if he said beer, he was going to walk out and say, you what, I need a glass of wine. But right, anyway, mixing up with a bit of politics, Keir Starmer or Donald Trump, and why?
That is a good question. I can't go with Donald Trump.
I love Trump.
Well,
I'm all Trump.
No,
Trump.
That will have to disagree. So on this one, I'm going to have to say Keir Starmer.
Oh, you can't beat Donald Trump.
The
man, I love him. Now there's a tariff. Now there's not.
Yeah,
now we've started a war. Now we're leaving the war.
Yeah.
Now I love it.
Exactly. Now I'm playing golf. Did you see that he dropped a ball by the bunker yesterday to play golf? The man's a cheat. They can't take him seriously.
Yeah, no.
I'm afraid Keir Starmer is the answer to the question.
By default, how sad is that? Now, okay, there's a football match final. Yeah, there's a final, World Cup final, France and England.
Yeah.
Whose side you're on?
Are you really asking?
I'm asking that question.
Right.
This is essential. This is important. I can't back anyone without knowing the answer to this question.
That's perfect. Okay. So I'm going to answer France, and I'm going to tell you why that is.
Get out.
First of all, well, I will be in a minute, I think. I might be walking on my car. Probably don't have any wheels on it anymore. No, I think I only support two teams, and I'm very clear about this. Mm-hmm. Okay, the two teams I support are France and whoever plays against England.
Oh,
how is that for an answer?
Wow, you didn't mess about. I thought you were going to be a bit more diplomatic. You were more diplomatic with CPE and pharmacy and everything, but you went straight for it with the football. There's no
you're
hanging
asking
about.
me too many questions about France. I am French, French through and through, and I have to say, whether it's rugby, whether it's football, it's always going to be France. I love my country. What I love is living in England. I've got great friends in England. I love the pace of life in England. I really love pharmacy to a point in England.
That your chair over
my
NPA.
French counterpart are looking at me and looking at the services that I offer in my pharmacy, and they're saying, come and tell me about it, because in France we're not offering half of what you're doing. So there are great things about England.
Okay.
But when it comes to the mother nation, I'm afraid, and football and rugby, it is France all the way.
Thank you so much for coming
pleasure.
to the Pharmacy Planet podcast. Thank you, Olivier Picard.
Thank you.